Welcome to Empowered Within, a soul-quenching, transformational podcast that will set your soul on fire through candid and inspiring conversations. Leading experts, celebrities, healers, and I share our journeys of how we've overcome challenges to living an empowered life from within. I'm your host, Jennifer Pilates. Welcome to another episode of Empowered Within. Welcome to the show. I am honored and so excited to have with us today Ralph MacIntyre. Ralph has been practicing intuitive astrology since 2010. He is a certified Master Evolutionary Astrologer under Stephen Forrest and certified in Astrocartography Relocation Astrology under Jim Lewis. Ralph is refining his cutting-edge Astrocartography Map software as well as developing new astrology apps. Ralph is on the board of NCGR in the San Diego chapter. He is known for blending evolutionary astrology with location astrology. Welcome to the show, Ralph.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, I am more than excited to have you here. So tell me, what led you to astrology?
What led me to astrology? I guess the simple answer would probably be God. And then the more real answer would be girlfriends.
Ooh.
So I've been into astrology since I was a really young person. And then one of my first readings I got from a person, I actually ended up marrying her, and she was my wife for several years. And she's the one that got me into astrocartography. And then at the time, there was no software. There was nothing. We were like measuring. We had this paper map that we got from Jim Lewis, and we were like out with the rulers and trying to measure with a ruler and figuring out all this different stuff. And then I had this brilliant idea. Wait a minute, I can put this on Google Maps. And you got to realize at the time, I didn't know anything really about astrology as far as how it worked or astrocartography or how it worked. And I had no idea anything about programming. And I'm extremely persistent. And so I just basically taught myself how to program and taught myself. It's actually, I call it spiritual trigonometry. It's actually spherical trigonometry, but it's if you want to make your brain melt, try to teach yourself. And so I ended up making this software just for us to use. And then I looked at it, I'm like, wait a minute, this is like beyond everything. And I thought at the time, it's so great, I'll put it out in the world. And it just sailed over everyone's head. It was just like so beyond what anyone was doing. And no one really got it. So then it was like the arduous task, catching everyone up to it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I've been at it for quite a long time. Yeah. And then I've been doing readings for probably over 10 years now.
Wow. And what drew you? How did your life start? And then how did you pivot into the astrology and into doing readings?
So I come from a really large family. I'm like the 11th of 12 10-pound babies.
Wow. God bless your mother.
My mom was a big, and then I was also diagnosed dyslexic. So I went into construction, and I've always been super sensitive, and I never really realized it. In the beginning, I just thought I was crazy. And then as I started to realize how intuitive I am and how sensitive I am, I started to move into astrology and then doing the software and then the readings. And then now I'm much more into evolutionary astrology and really going out on my own. I'm being constantly called to take astrology to a whole nother level, which is a much more soul level, looking at it from the soul level rather than from the mind. A lot of people ask me what I do, and it's funny because I'm like, I really have no idea. Because I just open up my heart and let the energy move through me. And so that's what I'm doing now is I really help people see and identify the karmic blocks that are keeping them from what they want. And then I blend all of that with locational astrology and the understanding of the planet and the locations. And yeah, so that's what I'm up to now.
That sounds amazing. So for our listeners out there who may be familiar with astrology, but aren't with astrocartography, could you explain what that is to them?
One of the simple ways to think about astrocartography, I presume everyone has watched the moonrise or the sunrise or the sunset. And so when you're watching the planet set, you're actually sitting on an astrocartography line. So the line represents where on the planet where on the Earth a particular planet is setting, or the midheaven, which is noon, and the Isis, which is midnight. And so by understanding, so it's imagine at the moment of birth, all these planets are drawing lines on the planet, and those lines represent your individual signature of that planet. So it's like your own personal astrology energy in different areas of the planet. I don't know if I made sense there or not. So.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great explanation. Now, what would be the benefits of using astrocartography?
The simple thing is, if you think about it from the perspective of these planets are asking you a question, their energy that wants you to utilize them. And so if you try to answer a question that you don't know the question is, it's much harder. Versus if you know the question, it's much easier to understand. It's much easier to answer it. And so by understanding the different influences of the area, it's easier to bring that influence into your life in a way that's beneficial.
That makes complete sense. Now, we talked a little bit pre-show about right now, there's a plethora of people moving throughout the United States, throughout the world. What is your recommendation for someone to say, or even me to say, okay, Ralph, where is there the ultimate place for me to live? Where life is just wonderful and rainbows and unicorns and strawberry fields. I love that. So he's pointing, yes, he's pointing to his heart. And I love that. Ralph has numerous videos, which I encourage everyone to go and watch. And as you're pointing to your heart, it's making me think about something that you said in one of your videos, where you really talk about finding your soul purpose is almost more important than the place that you're moving to.
Yeah. So you think about, most people are moving because they want, quote unquote, a home. Mm-hmm. And this is where it was really interesting, because I had quite a journey. When I first started astrocartography, I was like most astrocartographers. I saw it as this panacea. You move to your Venus line and you find love. You move to your sun line. And then as I started to do more readings, I saw it much more complicated. And we were joking before we started recording about how you can't move away from yourself. And so if you try to move away from yourself or run from your issues, it doesn't work. And depending on the particular aspect, most people don't understand that the line on your map represents that planet in your birth chart. So if you have a Sun-Saturn square like I do, if you move to your sun line, you're dealing with a Sun-Saturn square. And so by understanding that, it really helps out. And so what I do in my readings is I take the holistic approach. And the other thing I always start with, it's like, Jennifer, no matter how good the astrology is in Afghanistan, life for you in Afghanistan, or it doesn't matter how good your astrology is in Ukraine right now, it's not going to necessarily be a good life. And if you're a people person, and I move you out in the middle of the desert, or if you're a city person and I move you to the nowhere, or if you're a country person and I move you to New York City, it's for me, it's no matter how good the astrology is in New York City, I will be like overwhelmed under my bed the whole time.
Me too.
Super sensitive. And then the other thing is that, and this is where most people, in my opinion, really get astrology wrong. So if you think about everything you heard about astrology, everything you've heard about astrology is 100% correct. But if I take a coin and I put the heads up and I describe that coin exactly to you, everything I'm saying to you is correct. But there's a problem. There's a whole nother side of the coin. And so by looking at both sides of the coin, you get a more deeper understanding of the planet. And so this concept that there's, so to speak, a bad line or a bad placement, it's look up in the sky at any night and you point to me what's bad, what's wrong. It's like, that's an ego perspective. because astrology is here to help you break free of your ego. And so by understanding that and by looking at the holistic thing, and so the way I look at it is, if you think about the planet's energy will enact in your life, think about it, that truck is rolling. So if you have a fatalistic approach of astrology, that's like talking about laying down in front of the truck. You lay down in front of a rolling truck, it generally doesn't go well. Trucks, they have these thing called a steering wheel. And so if you get behind the steering wheel, which is understand what the planet wants from you and utilize, it's much better. And then the other aspect that I like to talk about is that when the planet's acting on you, it's much more, there's much more energy. So it's, if you think about food, if you try to get your nutrients from McDonald's, you have to eat a huge amount of it. Versus if you have this super high vibe food, you only need a little bit. So if the planet's acting on you, it acts a huge amount. Versus if you're utilizing that energy, it really doesn't take as much. It's like just looking in the direction of the energy, just be like open to Saturn as your friend. On some levels, is all it takes. And so by using all of that, we can start to look at all the different aspects of your life and all the different aspects of the physical location. And then the other aspect that I dive deep into is the karmic stuff. And so much of what happens to our life is represented by karma. You know, and it's funny for me because being in my own business, I found this out in a very interesting way, because our Western society says, work hard, be diligent, you'll make money. And I do all this work, I'm really diligent, no money comes in. But then I sit in my meditation chair and I work on worthiness, and all of a sudden the money comes flowing in. And so it's, someone will say, oh, you're not working hard enough, that's why you don't have what you want. And it's not that simple. If you come into the planet with this karmic worthiness issue, which a lot of us do, and this is the same with relationships, it's the same with everything. And so by understanding the karma helps you understand what's working behind the scene. And the more you understand that, and you take this holistic approach, you can really help people find the right place.
Okay. And the karmic aspect, that's something else that you can find through the traditional birth chart of astrology. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. Through the south node of the moon. There's different techniques. And it's interesting for me because I hide a little bit behind astrology, because it's easier to say I see it in the chart than I just pull it out of thin air. Mm-hmm. And so for me, one of the things I noticed as I do more readings is my ability to tune into the karmic energy as a flow. And it's, I can feel the feelings forward and back. And by doing that, I can help people understand the undercurrents of what's going on. And by understanding the undercurrents, it makes you feel less crazy, really. It's mm-hmm. one of the big things I do as an astrologer is I help people feel less crazy. No, this is just exactly where you're supposed to be.
Right. And they always say you are where you are, and you're right where you're meant to be in this moment, which brings me to this question. I'm sure lots of listeners will have this too. So they're saying, okay, Ralph, I'm living in a place and I'm not resonating with it, not with the people, not with anything. I have feng shuied my house. I have crystals everywhere. And I am trying to manifest happiness, but it's not working. It's not jiving. And I feel I don't belong here. What do I do?
The simple answer is breathe. And a selfless promotion is you call me for a reading. But let me dive deeper into that. So one thing is to understand that so much of what's happening in your life is beyond your understanding. The karmic things. So when you're in that situation, which a lot of us, and I've been there, trust me, in there all the time. And one of the first things that I recommend is, this is perfect. This is exactly where I'm supposed to be, exactly where I'm supposed to be doing. And then once you take that perspective, takes this huge weight off of your shoulders. Oh my God, if only I could do this, or only if I move here, everything's going to be great. Because in reality, if you're not dealing with the karmic underpins, no matter where you move, it's like, for me, it's like I could move to lines that are going to bring me in so much wealth and so much prosperity. But if I sit there and don't feel like I deserve it, if I feel like I'm a failure. And so by understanding the underlying story, one of the ways that I like to say this is, you know what's going on in your subconscious by what's going on in your life. So if something's not working in your life and you've actually done the physical thing to so to speak, fix it, then it's an underlying subconscious story. And this is one of the reasons why I said, call me up for a reading. This is one of my specialties. I'm super good at seeing patterns. This is part of the reason why my readings go so insanely long, because it takes me a little while to build trust and get into the energy flow. And then all of a sudden, usually an hour and a half into the reading, we break into this whole nother place where we can start to deal with the underlying patterns. And so on my YouTube channel, I have a ton of videos. And I also have a ton of videos helping you work with some of the underlying karmic energy. So if you go to my YouTube channel, there's a playlist called Heart Wisdom Podcast. So the playlist, there's a bunch of different playlists. So Heart Wisdom Podcast, and then also there's a meditation playlist that helps deal with all the energies.
It's here, our Empowered Within bonus clips and behind-the-scenes videos from podcast episodes. You can check out the pre-show, the post-show, and everything in between that doesn't actually make it into the podcast episodes. Head over to jenniferpilates.com, click podcast, and click watch videos, and you can watch never-before-seen podcast videos of our Empowered Within episodes. Enjoy 15% off with this promo code Pilates15. I can tell you firsthand, starting a podcast is one of the best decisions I've ever made, but it can feel overwhelming if you don't know how to get started. Well, that's where Buzzsprout comes in. Buzzsprout is hands down the easiest and best way to launch a professional podcast. In fact, it's so good, they've helped over 100,000 people launch their own professional podcasts. Buzzsprout will get your podcast into every major podcasting platform. You also get a great-looking podcast website, audio players you can drop into other websites, detailed analytics, tools to promote your episodes, and so much more. Plus, Buzzsprout publishes new blog posts and podcast episodes every week so you can learn the ins and outs of podcasting from the people who eat, drink, and breathe it. To start your own podcast and get a $20 Amazon gift card, follow the link in the show notes. This lets Buzzsprout know that we sent you and help support the show. Buzzsprout, the easiest way to get started in podcasting. Eating better is the key to better health, and Mother Nature offers us all the right ingredients. Eating a healthy, balanced diet that includes plenty of fruits and vegetables isn't always easy in today's lifestyle. That's why Juice Plus offers Mother Nature's gift in convenient, easy-to-consume products that are as close to nature as they possibly could be. Plant-based nutrition from fruits and vegetables has been demonstrated by science to give your body the building blocks it needs to help you look better and feel better and live a longer and healthier life. Juice Plus products offer to improve heart health, the immune system, skin health, and other important aspects of health and wellness. I personally have been taking Juice Plus whole food nutrition for over 20 years. I swear by it. It's exactly what I need to help me keep my immune system healthy as it possibly can be. Juice Plus promise is simple. It helps bridge the gap between what you should eat and what you do eat every day. Nothing more, nothing less. Follow the link in the show notes so that Juice Plus knows that we sent you and to help support the show. Juice Plus, plant-based nutrition from fruits and vegetables, offers Mother Nature's gift to help you look better and feel better and live a longer and healthier life.
And so another aspect in most of the people that come to me, so one of the things that I'm a big synchronicity thing. So if someone calls me up, it's funny because Jennifer and I were talking about this before. The fact that I'm talking right now and is that we could get into the synchronicity of it, but it was just like magical. And one of the things that is big is that so much of what you experience is not you. We are this idea that we're this individual body is, I could use some strong words like a lie or false, or it's just misleading. And so one of the first things I start to talk to people is that like 99.9999, and I'm going to go on 10 days of 9% experience of what you experience here isn't you. You know, so especially right now, if you're feeling agitated, the world's feeling agitated. And so by understanding what's you and what's not you, and this is what really opened me up, is once I began to understand, wait a minute, I'm not crazy. Everyone else is crazy. And so much of what I experience isn't me. And so by understanding that, you can really start to dive into what's really the problem. And because the other thing people don't understand, it's like moving throws your whole life up in the air. And so if you think you're going to move and throw your whole life up in the air, and then things are going to just be miraculously better, sometimes that's the case, but most of the time it isn't, because then you have to rebuild everything. Versus if you understand the energies that are working behind the scene, if you, so to speak, get into that happy place, you get into that grounded, centered, focused, where you can be you and not everyone else's energy, then you can move anywhere.
Okay, so you just opened a can of worms because you know I'm coming for this, Ralph. So,
okay,
Ralph,
come on, I'm ready.
I know you are. So, Ralph, how do I find my happy place? Legitimately be happy where I am? Because you have moments, but then it's like the little kid sitting there going, I'm rich, and your ego's going, bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. So how can someone do that? How can they find their happy place in this place where maybe they're not so happy right now?
Yeah, I feel you. I know that one. And sending everyone a big hug, because I know that one. So happiness is an interesting word, and we're bombarded with what happiness means. And one of the quickest ways to find happiness is to accept everything is perfect. It's, if you're miserable, that's perfect. Now, diving deeper into that, when you anchor your ship to something that's not in your control. So it's, I have a great job, I'm happy. I have money in my bank account, I'm happy. I have a beautiful lover, I'm happy. My kids are all healthy, my parents are all healthy. I have this beautiful pink house, I'm happy. The problem with that is that then if that goes away, all of a sudden you're not happy. And the Corona kind of pulled everything out everything out. The threat of nuclear war. It's okay. How can you be happy when the nuclear war happens? Or how can you, this is where I want to go up. I want to go up to the divine. You can use whatever word you want. God, Jesus, all of the divine, the mother, and let go into the perfection of the movement. Even though from our perspective, it looks just so terrible, everything's going to come apart, the world's coming apart, everything's coming apart. The more you anchor yourself to that divine, then nothing can shake that from you. It's like you have this anchor to the divine, nothing can shake that from you. And then also, when you're anchored to the divine, you're centered, you're calm, you realize what's you and what's not you. You can make good decisions. When you're focused on, oh my God, I got to get a job, I got to find a lover, I got to, all this stuff, you make terrible decisions. And so the simple answer is connect into your heart, connect into the divine. It's funny, I was giving a reading to someone just the other day, and it's, the brain is your enemy. The heart is your friend. It's like, in Western society, especially as men, it's don't have feelings, follow your, and be practical, be rational. And there's a lot of truth to that. Don't get me wrong. That's one side of the coin, though. You flip over the other side of the coin, the divine, God, speaks to us through our heart. So he speaks to us through our authentic desires, our authentic feelings. And so by learning to sit into the uncomfortable feelings, and that's another thing. It's like, if you look at feelings as this unbelievable wisdom in front of you, any feeling, I don't care what it is. You could feel like suicidal. You could feel like the world's going to die. You can feel crushed. You can feel like you can't get out of bed. If you can lose the story behind it and sit in the rawness of the feeling, there's so much wisdom there. And by getting that wisdom, you can then make decisions that help you move forward. And it's interesting, I'm about to do a bunch of videos on this particular subject because there's a bunch of transits right now that are happening that are asking us to step forward. And synchronistically wise, I think that's why we're having this conversation right now, for all these people out there listening. And so by understanding that, by anchoring your happiness to the divine, this unshakable rock, knowing, because if you believe in evolution, if you believe in karma, then this physical body isn't us. That nothing in this physical world can hurt the soul. And so by understanding that, you can relax into it and not get so caught up. And then the other thing that's really important is karma is something that's ununderstandable. It's like, why is this perfect, sweet person? I have a good friend client that's suffering really right now with cancer, and she's got this perfect person, all this, and yet she's suffering with this thing. And it's easy to be like, oh, what's she doing? It's like all illness is in our minds and everything. And there's some truth to that, but there's so much karmic stuff happening. And so it's important to let go of that. And so the other thing about it too is it's like you have control over two things: how you react and what you do next. Everything else is completely out of your control. What happens from your actions, what other people do, out of your control. What the politicians do, what your neighbor does, completely out of your control. And so the more you can let go of that, the more you can be like, okay, I can control my reaction, which is the most important. If you want happiness, figure out how to control your happiness. It's funny, I was working with a good friend of mine just yesterday, and today actually too. And he's moving, but he's got a Taurus moon, and Taurus moons don't like change. And so he's like, he sold his house and he doesn't have a place to live, and he's like freaking out. And I was sitting there helping him breathe and come back into, you don't let your mind take you down that realm. And so there's heaven and hell. Your mind will take you to hell. Everyone knows where hell is. Everyone knows where hell is. Mm-hmm. And here's the interesting part. Heaven is anything that's not hell. So I just recently broke my leg. And so I spent 6 months on crutches. And it was such a profound thing for me, because it really helped me out. It helped me get a hold of my negative mind, because I was sitting in bed. I had this temporary cast put on me in the emergency room that I could take off. But I knew if I took it off, when I got the permanent cast on, I would be out there with my tools trying to cut it off. And so I'm sitting in bed and I'm like, my ego, this is uncomfortable. I can't sleep. Let's just take it off so we can sleep. Hell, I was in hell. And I realized that I could stay in hell for as long as I want. But anything that wasn't that was better. And so I chanted. I stood up. I stayed up all night long chanting. Took 4 nights in a row.
Oh, wow.
of chanting before I finally was able to break through. Mm-hmm. And so happiness is always available, always there. It doesn't require anything outside of you. Now, you have to get control of the negative mind and the reaction. And that's all you have control over. And the more you can do that, the better off you can. Mm-hmm. And so I have a lot of techniques that I've developed to help people with that. And then the other thing that's can be so helpful, and this is what I love about astrology, especially the way I look at the chart. It shows you why, shows you where you're coming from, where you're going, and what you're here to learn. So it's, if you think about every placement in your birth chart is lessons that you're here to learn. You know, I'm a massive Gemini. I have Sun, Moon, and Mars in Gemini. And so I'm here to learn this openness, this curiosity. And so by understanding that and then understanding the karma, it really can help you find happiness. Mm-hmm. And on some levels, if you move, it's funny because my friend almost made an offer on a house. So I got to find a, boom, he's like buying a house sight unseen. I'm like, dude, if you don't get a hold of that negative mind, it's going to be there. It's going to come with you. So it's like on some levels, if you're moving to find happiness, you're walking down a path that's not as easy. Versus if you find the inner happiness, you find the inner purpose, and then move, then you're guaranteed to find that home. And that's the other thing that it's funny because a lot of astrocartographers, they have this kind of cookie cutter panacea approach. And when I first started, I was guilty of this. Move to your Jupiter line, move to your sun line. And it's funny because I had this one client that where another astrocartographer said, move to their Jupiter line. And their Jupiter ruled their north node. And your north node is where you're ignorant. So it's okay. So you want to move to a line where you're the most clueless. Mm. That probably isn't going to go well.
No.
Because if you think about the north node as what you don't know, and I'm about to do a video on this. If you think about the north node as what you don't know, it's like what you need to learn. And it's funny because one of my teachers, Stephen Forrest, he says, yeah, you're really that stupid. It's like your north node is like where you're really that stupid.
Interesting.
It's funny because I have my north nodes conjunct my Venus. And everyone's moved to your Venus line to find love. And I'm like, yeah, that's not a good idea. Because if you're having trouble finding love, which a lot of us are, very likely you have the same problem that I have, where I have what would be considered a broken picker. It's I can find the train wrecks. I joke with my friend, it's if I'm attracted to them, they're batshit crazy. And so it's like you move to your Venus line and your discernment isn't up for the par. So it's because you move to your Venus line, that energy is going to make you the most attractive to the most number of people. So if you're not able to say no to all the idiots or all the wrong people, you move to your Venus line, it's a train wreck after a train wreck.
It sounds very overwhelming. I resonate with what you're saying. I used something a while ago, and someone had said, oh, go look for where your sun line is. You should move there. Okay, so I just randomly pulled up something, and if I looked at it correctly, which probably I may not have even been, it was way out west and in areas that I knew would never work for me, just the way that I feel. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense to me. I don't resonate with that at all. So I get what you're saying. You have to pull in your soul along with that birth chart that you were imprinted with.
And here's the other aspect that most astrocartographers really miss. And this is what I say in the beginning of the reading. Astrocartography is a super powerful energy, but it's one of many. It doesn't matter how good your astrology is in Afghanistan, your life isn't going to be very good in Afghanistan. If you're a country person and I move you to a city. So we have to look at everything. And then the other thing about it too, and this is because I'll deal with a lot of people that are retiring and moving. If you got grandkids and you're connected to your grandkids, I don't care how good your astrology is, a couple plane ride away from your grandkids, it ain't going to be good. Right. Or vice versa. If you have like super controlling parents and you can't say no to. There's nothing better than, Mom, I would love to help you out, but it's like a 5-hour plane ride. I can't. Versus if you're like tied to your family and you don't want to go, you have a good relationship. We move you 5 hours away. And so my approach with astrocartography is not to look at the lines to where to move. It's look at the lines to understand what to expect. Mm-hmm. It's like weather. It's like if it's rainy, you bring your umbrella. If it's super hot, you dress accordingly. And then the other thing that most people most people really miss, a lot of astrologers really miss, astrocartographers especially miss this. And it's really simple. Your soul, the divine, chose your astrology to help liberate you from your ego. Every planet in your chart is your friend. It's there to liberate you from your ego. And so there's no part of your chart that if you don't integrate won't be a problem. And so it's not like you can move off of one line and move to another line. And so rather than looking at the map as to where to live, look at the map as to understand if you were to move there, in my opinion, how to find the right place, how to find the happiness, how to find that calling, how to connect into with that divine wisdom so that you can be the change that we all need. So we can all shine, we can all power up. Mm-hmm. and bring what we need to bring into the planet.
And I think that's important. I think that's why maybe, and you may or may not agree, but so many people are being guided to certain places. It's almost like to bring the light, to anchor in that energy. So would you share with our listeners, where is the best place for them to contact you so that they can have their own reading and have you look at their charts and find you on YouTube and all those good places?
So it's astromaplinks.com, astromaplinks on YouTube. So there's my YouTube channel has enormous amount of really helpful content, and it's all free. You can just check in on it. You can book a reading with me on my website. There's links on my YouTube channel. I believe there's going to be links in the show notes.
Ralph, what parting piece of inspiration would you like to leave with our listeners today?
Happiness is available right now. No matter what happens in the world, there's happiness available to you. And so much of what keeps us from our happiness is our stuck on what we think brings us happiness. And the more you break free of what you think is happy and embrace things that are you wouldn't imagine being happy. So like, for instance, if you have a really challenging feeling right now, which most of us are, run towards it. Lose the story. Don't put any words into it, but just breathe into the rawness of the feeling. Because for me, any challenging feeling is the divine imparting some powerful wisdom on you. So if you can lose the feeling, lose the story, ground into the feeling and just let it be perfect. That's my recommendation, especially in this coming next couple of months. And happiness is available to you right now.
Beautiful.
Anchor into the divine.
Beautiful. Thank you for that, Ralph. And thank you for all of your incredible insights and sharing your astrology journey with us. This has been so incredible, and I'm so honored to have you on the show today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I am so honored.
Yeah.
And if you're listening to this, very likely you're super sensitive. Mm-hmm. We didn't talk about it, but this was like the most synchronistic, magical reason why this is happening right now.
Thank you so much, Ralph. And again, so honored to have you, and I'm sure that we'll have you back on the show.
Awesome. Thank you. I would love to talk some more.
Yes, thank you. Well, as we say, until next time. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to Empowered Within with Jennifer Pilates. Your feedback is important. It helps me to connect with you and gives me insight into who you are and what you're enjoying about the show. For today's show notes and discount codes from today's sponsors, head over to jenniferpilates.com. Until next time, may you live an empowered life from within.